Were all these men of God? Yes, they were men of God. God even said David is a man after his own heart. But yet still David killed and lied his way into another wife. I'm going to pause a little bit on Solomon. Solomon had 800 wives, 700 wives, and 300 concubines. I'm going to share something. Going to school, in high school, there was a time where if you only had one girlfriend, they would have called you a one burner. Huh? They would have called you a one burner. Are you soft? Interesting. Right? It was cool to have multiple girlfriends. Me, I never understood that. Like, and it's not that I have any real high moral authority over the matter. It's just psychologically, and it playing out now in my life, where my wife is a very opinionated, strong-minded woman. The thought of having to juggle two of her is stressful. Very stressful. And I've had that thought from high school. Not about her, but just generally. Because sometimes you, as boys, we group and we talk about girl and them thing. That some boy I talk about how much girl him have over there, so which girl him have right so. And they all culminate into which problem him have right so. And when him book her half a tree, it's like him have to walk some far. And I say, so brother, you can barely manage when you want two, you want three. I can't understand that. Similarly with Solomon. Solomon had 700 wives. If I can't fathom having more than one wife, 700, to be intimate with one person requires so much of yourself. And for you to share that with, we not talk side chick, you know. Side chick, you have your little promiscuous relationship and you move on. These are women that he got married to.
Teacher.
Yes.
So much wives and only one picking him get. Can you imagine?
Only one child?
Yes. One child him get.
One son?
One son.
He had many sons, many children, but he had many children. All of them had many children. From those different, I have a hand at the back. Uncle Raymond. Yes.
Yes, sir. You have to help people to remember that, Solomon, even in the king days, not even just Solomon, when they have more than one wife, they have to make an appointment. They can't just go into the king.
Right.
Esther was the only one who go in when the king raised the scepter. But remember what she said before. She said, if I die, I die. If I perish, I perish. So they couldn't, although him have 700, they couldn't show up. They couldn't show up. They have to come by appointment, because if you come without appointment, you would die.
Well,
but
all right,
the Bible say that.
Fair enough. However, that was King Persia, Ahasuerus, Xerxes. That was Xerxes and his women and Esther. Their culture.
Yeah, that's their culture.
I wouldn't say that that's how it was in Israel.
With most of the kingdom. And if you go back and read, you can find it. And anybody says Solomon have one child, go back and read.
All right, so in terms of the appointment thing, that's documented in Esther, right? That was the culture in Persia. I won't say it's the same in Israel. They may have had something maybe similar or something different. We don't know. But the major point here is that you can see a deviation from the structure. You can see a deviation over time away from what God had initially appointed. And that is the point. Yes.
All right. Since you are into riddles, I'd like to ask one. If you call a dog's tail a leg, foot, how many feet does a dog have?
If you call a dog's tail a foot, how many feet does he have? Still 4, because his tail is his tail.
All right. You have the correct answer there. What you call a wife is you calling a wife. What does God call her? God made one wife for Adam. Right?
Right.
So you can get married 700 times, but it's one wife you have. And that's bigamy by our laws today. It was culturally accepted on earth, but because God permitted it or allowed it to happen doesn't mean that God approved it. And therefore, if you look at it from a technical perspective, Solomon had what? 699
women. Women.
He had one wife and he was married 699 other times.
Other times, right. And not to mention the 300 side chicks. So there is also that. So thanks for that point, Elder. So we can see the deviation from the original structure. And now we have gotten to a point where when I read the thing that I posed earlier, the scenario, someone literally can think in their brain, how can there be another father? Maybe there were a gay couple. That's where the deterioration has reached. So now, what is the defensive tip? The defensive tip, it really and truly remains consistent. You need to know what is in this. You need to understand what the Word of God says. And the interesting thing about information, and we tried it out 2 weeks ago, right? Every question has an answer. And we now have gotten to the point where we can get those questions answered at the speed of light. We asked a question in here for ChatGPT, and the response is that when persons did it, that they got amounted to what we believe. But here's the trick. The devil had an answer for everything, but he knows the truth too, But what he did instead is play Chinese telephone with it. And we know how Chinese telephone go. One person hears something, and by the person at the end of the line, something totally different. So instead of coming to you with the full thing, like chop it off fully and say, say X. But you say, no, it's Y. But if him use the other letters in between, I should say Z and A. If him use the letters in between and misconstrue whatever the original thing is, you're going to get confused. You're going to get confused. So, we look at today's version of the counterfeit family. We have man and man, woman and woman. Some cases we have human and animals. Yes. You have a guy that got married to his iPhone some years back. Good while now. And these are actually documented things. And people are calling these things a family. Let me give you a little bit of statistics. And this is just from me doing some research. It says according to the Pew Research, examples of families have shifted from the 1960s. So in the 1960s, 73% of children lived with two parents in their first marriage. In the 1980s, 61% of children lived with two parents in their first marriage. Currently, less than half of children live within two-parent households with parents who are in their first marriage. So what that is saying is that we have a lot of single-parent households. And for the other, because it says less than half, for the other percentage, it's a one bag of mix up.
One question.
Yes.
Is that it's a worldwide thing or is the Jamaican statistics?
No, this is centralized to the US mostly.
Yes, okay.
Right. But in our good question though, in our Jamaican context, what do we see happening in terms of our familial laws? Or just how families are structured today? I can start off. I've seen a lot of persons in what's that term again? When they come together but they're not married and live common law unions. I'm seeing a lot of that now, especially with very influential people in society. I'm talking Jamaican society. A lot of common law relationships. And that is that right? Don't be shy. We need to know. No. I'll give you another example. And these all have consequences. I have a friend who, he and his girlfriend at the time, they bought a house together. And him tell me long after them buy the house. So I think that was strategic. Told me about it. I was like, cool. Then break up. Do you think it was very easy for them to separate those assets? No. That was also very heavily documented to me, the trouble that he went through because the house was bought under joint tenancy. And just for them to separate and have some sort of civil conversation around the house, it was ridiculous, right? So the framing now of everything goes a lot deeper than just me and you come together, but when now you start to put assets and all of these things like actual married legal people, and they say, boy, done with this, It's not that easy to separate. And if you think about it, should it be that easy for married people to get divorced as well? I saw something to think about. Saw somebody take the mic.
If we examine our Jamaican culture, Caribbean history, most of the descendants who find themselves in Jamaica originated in Africa. And they were brought, our foreparents were brought to Jamaica to work on the plantations. Now, what happened is that Europeans recognized that slavery was wrong. Wilberforce and the names associated with it. What they did in England, London, was to make the slave trade illegal. But owning slaves was still legal. So you have a estate, a plantation, you need manpower. Europeans can't manage the hard work in the tropics, so you go to Africa and you carry slaves across. But now your source of slaves has ended. You can't carry any more new slaves in. So what the plantation owners did was to encourage the men on the plantation to go out and have as many children as they could have. So they had a good, strong slave. We're talking about slavery in our Sabbath school lesson this week, right? You have a good, strong slave. You literally put him out like how you'd put out a horse, right? To have as many children, because as long as the children were born on your plantation, guess what? They were your slaves. So that is how you are going to get workers to work your estate. Now, there were some mulattoes that the white men had, and they would send them off to England to school and whatever, and they would come back and become managers of the estates. But the main problem is the slave trade was abolished before slavery was abolished. And so culturally, somehow it got into our DNA. And a man thinks that he must have so many. I was talking to somebody yesterday. I was talking, and you know who I'm talking, although you probably don't know who I'm talking about. He told me that when he went to his father's funeral, and they were giving the list of children, there were 35 children present at the funeral for the father, and one had died. So it's 36 children his father had. And yesterday I was talking with him again, and I said, how many children you have? And he told me I have 16. Right? 16 children. Right? Now, because in many instances our women are careless, and many instances the women don't see any future, and they think that this man means them good, and they are willing to commit themselves into a relation, and this man is just using them. And I can tell you, when you have 35 children, I'm sure you don't remember them names, much less to give them funds. Right? So these are the sort of things that are impacting our society. And then children grow up not seeing their parents together. Sabbath school lesson again. When your parents don't set the right example, guess what the children do? If the child grows up and sees father boxing mother, I had a neighbor, he was at the time either 17 or 18, and he had a girlfriend living with him. And he used to beat her daily. And I go to her workplace all the time and see her, and when I see her, they're not together now, but this is a 17-year-old boy who thinks that as the man, he has the right to butter bruise a woman. And it's a cycle that it will propagate itself. It will continue. And when we talk to young people, especially, we don't really talk to the young men adequately, but when we see the young ladies, them, and we try to encourage them in the right way, a lot of them tell them, no, I know girls come here and tell us, boy, when I am 16, I'm going to get pregnant. Girls from Hagley Park Church are here with that. Right? These are the sort of things that we're not to think that the devil has deceived us. We are deceiving ourselves. You hear them say sometimes we tempt the devil, and that is what we do.
Thank you for that. To add to that point, because it actually moves into what I wanted to go into, which is children, is that what the devil did, is set certain things in motion. He doesn't have to be a part of every little thing. The best business model you can have is any product or service that can pay for itself and maintain itself. Because you spend less time, energy, and money doing the everyday rudimentary when the business can pay for whatever machinery by making its revenue, making its, paying for this, that out of its own money, and then can pay you. What the devil did at the beginning was set something in motion that through the generations, he never really left with nothing. These men and women did the job for him and continue to do it to the point where we get to today. Is there something, somebody else had another hand or no? Okay. So to move into the point about attacking children. That's why this week's lesson, the week has not ended yet. This week's lesson about family was very prudent for this, because the people who make things that we use are very deliberate about what it is that they're doing. The parable, which is a favorite parable of mine, the parable of the unjust steward. Jesus said something in that parable that is just so powerful that no matter how or usually anything that happens, like I fall back on it and say, this is so true. He said, the children of this world are wiser than the children of light. And there is context around why he said that. The unjust, yes.
Can you just tell us where that parable is found so we can look it up ourselves?
Okay. That parable, I believe, is in Luke. Is Luke 20. Let me just be certain. Luke 16, sorry. Luke 16. And the parable, the unjust steward was essentially fired by the master because he did not manage the resources properly. And he got some time to redeem himself, but he was still fired. He went around and got favor. He went to the persons who owe money, that's debtors, right? Went to them and, hey, my master needs this money. And they said, boy, I can't pay back everything. So the man said, you know what? Just give me a little bit. Just, I will waive this part and give me this. So when I present it to him, it's basically he's going to write off your debt. But remember me. Remember when we need somewhere. Remember what I did for you. I went around and did that and did that and did that and presented to the master, and the master said, you have done something wise, right? Jesus said this because at the end of the day, the people of this world know something, When they need to get what they need to get, they are very intentional about it. It doesn't mean that it's right, but they have a plan. And best believe, come hell or high water, that plan is going to be executed and successful. Here's the kicker. Jesus said they are wiser than the children of light because I, Jesus, heir of the kingdom of God, have access to all that you need, but you don't come to me. You don't ask me for it. You don't intentionally invoke the treasures of heaven. So how can you be blessed if you're not intentional about asking for what you want? Intentional about doing the things of God and not even necessarily worrying about where it's going to come from. Why that's important in relation to the family. Here a little story. So, we have set up a YouTube Kids. YouTube has an app called YouTube Kids. We allow our son to watch very specific content on it. We can choose what we want. There's only really 2 channels. 3. Number blocks, color blocks. So number blocks teaching about numbers. Color blocks teaches him about colors. And alpha blocks teaches him about letters and words. We made the first mistake of then adding more channels which were Christian content. At first, it wasn't a mistake because, of course, no brainer. So he watches and that and that and that. When Sabbath comes, we make him just watch the Christian things. It got to a point where Zion can now tap his way to what he wants, when he wants it. So I sat and watched him. Like we put on the Listener Kids. So Listener Kids has a lot of Christian songs.
Remind us, how old is he again?
He is 2 years old now. And he will tap on it and tap until he find back color blocks or number blocks or whatever he want to watch. So I say, all right, think you smart. What I did then was we created 2 channels. One that you have to go in of and one that you have to come out of. So one with the color blocks, number blocks, whatever blocks, just that over there, and the other one with the Christian content. So when Sabbath come, or whenever we want, whenever we want him to watch it, we just switch and go to the next one. That's kind of difficult for a toddler to maneuver. Or so we thought. I sat down and watched him. When I opened the Christian one, I saw him come out of the profile, find the profile that has the color blocks, and tapped into it. Tapped into it, and there we go. So you know who on a tablet right now. So
My smart everlasting.
I follow this gentleman on YouTube. He's a designer, but he has a very scientific mind, and he always explains in depth of how certain things are designed. For example, the iPhones, the Samsung, whatever. So he was talking about this thing called anthropological design. Long and short of it, the people who invent these devices use and understand human psychology. When you tap something or what you do on the phone, even the positioning of the buttons. If you notice my hand is like this, why? Why are the buttons here? Because when your hand rests on the phone, it is the most comfortable and most common position that the phone is in. So the volume buttons are up and down, one tap. Close button on the right. And they have designed it so intricately that a toddler can understand how to tap on the device and maneuver than operating a remote control for a television. Scientifically proven because I sat down and watched my 2-year-old do it. That's important because how we understand what we understand today is not by happenstance. It was designed that way. Going back to the scenario again, we think that the surgeon was a man because over the years, whatever things have happened, we relate doctors to men. So the first thing coming to our mind is not a female doctor, it's not a female surgeon. And the devil understands that. He understands psychology. So he uses that to warp our minds. And we have to understand who we're dealing with. And the persons that he has are the agents that he has doing the bidding that they don't even know says that them doing, really and truly. They're just trying to make some money. These large companies are just trying to make some money. Starbucks, anybody know Starbucks? Or hear about Starbucks before? Starbucks is such an interesting story. I won't bore you with it. But there's a reason why people will go there and spend money. I've been to Starbucks. I'm not impressed. Plus, it's expensive. It's not my thing. Let me just say that. It's not my thing. But Starbucks was created, is an American business. And they have found that if you make the typical coffee shop more family-oriented and cozy, they found that people will more likely spend higher amounts at this place than a regular cafe that sell the same thing, but them not have certain furniture in there or it don't set up a certain way. Like Dunkin' Donuts, I'm still trying to understand that one, because that is just a diabetes shop. But the fact is, and that's a good point, it still make money. Look at KFC. Look at KFC. Anybody can tell me there's nothing wrong, something psychologically not wrong with what is happening?
Nothing wrong. The chicken does taste good.
Really? You sure it's just chicken? I have yet to. I've wanted to kind of do a deep dive. Because you know, say KFC in America don't stay so though. KFC in America is not like that. Not how Jamaica deal with it. Listen, I've passed KFC on an early Sunday morning going about my business, and there's a line and the place don't open yet. The place don't open yet. The only thing I can deduce, or one of the few things I can deduce from that, is that people not cooking anymore. They're not cooking. They're not having this family time or what, I don't know. But there is some sort of psychological effect going on, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to figure it out somewhere, somehow. But the devil uses those things. The devil uses those things to change our dynamic. And if we're not careful, we're going to get trapped in it. So before we move over to our next topic, which would cover for today, because I kind of did a little speeding through. I want us to look at two texts, Genesis 2, verse 24. And the second one will be Ephesians 5, verse 33. I'm going to ask if I can get two readers. Genesis 2, verse 24. And Ephesians 5, verse 33. Genesis 2, verse 24.
You ready?
Repeat, which one?
Genesis 2, verse 24.
Yes.
Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh.
All right. Ephesians 5, verse 33. Hand over here. Oh.
Ephesians 5:33. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband.
All right. So we see two texts here that in some way have a circular pattern. Man shall leave where he used to reside, which is with his parents, and he will be joined to his wife, and they become one flesh. And here in Ephesians, every husband should love his wife as himself, and the wife should reverence her husband. If you become one flesh, it should be a circular pattern of love and affection. It should not be where one person has something and the other person have something else, have something else going on. And when we look at the scripture and we look at the family structure and we see what the devil tries to creep in, we can understand what the counterfeit is at this point in time. If we look at relationships today, generally, like I've spoken to a few young people, and by young, it's really my age. Huh? Yeah, that's why I said by young is really my age. Because when we say young people, sometimes we think the younger set. Not necessarily. So, some of the thoughts that they have around marriage and relationships are so warped. And I'm not even talking about the 3-girl thing at high school. We're talking big man now. Big man now, you swear, you put away baby thing. Take up big man thing. And it's not just the men. It's the women too. Their thoughts on relationships and marriage have become so warped that they not only do they not opt for marriage, they believe sincerely that something like common law relationships make more sense. They believe sex outside of marriage makes more sense. They believe every man for themselves and woman, equality. Everybody for themselves make more sense than coming together as one. And one of the biggest things that I got from whenever I asked or we went into that conversation, the reason why they think that way is because a lot of the marriages that they see have had bad influences on them. They're all bad marriages. All of them. Suffice to say, the devil is at work in our community, in our world, on deteriorating what the marriage is supposed to be. And it has gotten to the point now where the world just generally is self-destructing. I hope you know if you can see a pattern here. The devil is attacking certain core principles of the kingdom of heaven. First principle, communication. Disrupting the communication. The second principle, the family structure. Communication, family structure. What is the world made up of? No, humans. Humans. If you can prevent humans from having one goal in mind and living in a particular way, you disrupt the entire flow of creation. When we looked at the first lesson with the Tower of Babel, you remember what happened? What did God do? What did God do?
God let them start speaking different language.
Right, so he disrupted the communication. And he did that because he said nothing will be withholden from these people because they are one. They are unified in goal and mind, or mind and goal. So he disrupted that. Caused them to go back to the original thing. Go over there, so subdue the earth. What they were doing was coming together to build a massive apartment. That's what they were coming together to do. We're not going to go into the history of it because we already did it. But if you look thereafter, the information age, which is what we're living in now, where you can go on ChatGPT, go on Google and find literally anything that you want. You are exposed to any and everything that you don't need. Say that again. When you go on, when you get access to the information like Google, you get everything you want and also things that you don't need. And that causes a disruption. So it's not to say that these things are bad. The technology is not bad. The technology is what I'm using right now so that my voice can be amplified. Long ago, like there is this tool that the pastors use named Logos. Won't bore you on what it is, but it's a very powerful Bible study tool. But to get to that, I have to spend upwards of $2,000 just to get access to this, to the Bible, and to resources that will help me further spiritually. You know?
How much money you said? 2,000 US.
2,000 US. It's very expensive. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. But
you can't read and use the Holy Spirit to teach you. You're going to spend 2,000 US.
I'll answer that question. But
apparently he has spent his $2,000.
Who said? I said I don't have it because I don't have $2,000 to spend. The real question is, if I did have $2,000 to spend, would I spend it?
Apparently, yes.
Yes, I would. Honestly, I would. I think it is a really good resource. I think it really is. It really, really, really is. I won't get into it, but it really is a powerful resource. And honestly, brethren, I don't know how to put it because this is a conversation I've been having over the course of my life with different people and just being exposed to different things. I found that a lot of the things that we have a mental block to is because we mentally block it out. For example, our relationship with things like money. We don't understand how to use it. Therefore, we don't use it properly, or then we say, money is the root of all evil, when God never said that. God never said that. We have had people, God-fearing people with wealth. But a lot of the times, we interrupt our spiritual growth because we don't believe. So it's not that if I had it, yes, but there are other ways to get it. I have gotten it through access to other things that have been made free. So I have 2 different Bible apps, and they give me some of the commentaries that I can use. So I use that. But if I could use the $2,000 and get that and maybe share it with the brethren, then I would. Because God gave it to me. So why not share it with the rest of us, right? Won't get into too much of that. But that's what's that is the point there. So, sorry, I lost a little track. Let me get back. Right, so a lot of the information that we have out there is actually causing a disunity. And we need to weigh again what is out there with this. We have to wait with what is there. Because the further we study and the further we understand, you can see the nuances. You can see the differences. You can see what God said versus what is actually happening. And therefore, when you see the wrong thing, you can easily pick it up. You have a hand, Brother Luis?
Yes, I would like to put a spoke in the wheel again. Now, this week, Sunday's lesson, we read from the Bible that wives were to submit themselves to their husbands. That's not the complete text, but that's what I would like to focus on. Someone who I probably would figure would know a little better told me this week that that no longer applies because our culture is different. In those days, women were not highly educated, etc., etc. Now, whenever we try to justify our perspective based on our culture, we are treading on dangerous ground. It's a matter of, did the Bible say it or did the Bible not say it? We cannot use our culture to override what the Bible says, because if we do it on the topic of the relationship between wives and husbands, it legitimizes someone else doing it on another topic. But what we need to recognize, and I'm sure it would have been brought out to everybody this morning, that if a God-fearing man who loves his wife is going to relate to her, he's not going to do anything to abuse her, to abuse his authority over her or anything like that. And if the woman is a God-fearing woman who loves her husband, she will submit to him if needs be. Submission is not bad. And that is where we get into this whole thing. You know, I'm not submitting. We think of submission as servitude and whatever. If a man is going to just use his ego and dictate, oh, I am the man, you can do this or you can't do that. I was telling to someone, I went on a course in Germany, and it was a 2-week course, and they told us from the very first morning that on the last day, we were going to be taking a group photograph. And this girl, she's from Saudi, she called her husband to ask her husband if he would allow her to be in the group photograph. And he said no. I don't know if he didn't trust her or what, but that Friday morning, the last day of the conference, the workshop, He turned up from Saudi Arabia to Germany just to make sure that his wife was not a part of that group picture. Now, that to me is not the intention that God would have in the relationship between a man and a woman. I think, and you have stressed repeatedly the importance of communication. And a God-fearing man and a God-fearing woman, where have a mutual love relationship, should be able to communicate and come to an agreement. And if one is not able to share and convince the other one, I see nothing wrong. I see nothing wrong with a woman submitting herself to her husband who loves her, who also loves God. I am not going to say culture is different now, and so it doesn't apply. But I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that.
Before Brother Dixon comments, I think the important qualifier in that, because I agree with what you're saying, so to add, the important qualifier is that as Christ loved the church, which I think we oftentimes leave out. Oh, wives, submit yourself to your husband, and husband, love your wife. But as husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. I'll let Brother Dixon speak.
Yeah, Brother Everton is on target there. There was a situation in this church a number of years ago. Young lady, she got married to a young man that was in this church. And she's now deceased. The last time I saw her, we spoke right up at the front there. And she told me that she used to be very, very resistant to the idea of her husband leading, because she feels, or she felt, that she could also hold the reins. And she said there was just tension upon tension in the relationship. And she said one day she sat down and she contemplated, and I think she might have prayed. And she came to the conclusion that God says that she's supposed to submit to her husband. And she told me that the moment she decided that she was no longer going to be that resistant, but she was going to play it by God's rule, she said everything changed in her marriage for the better. And she said, having submitted to the fact that her husband was the head of the family, she ended up getting a lot of headship roles because he trusted her so much he allowed her to do a lot of things. So the question is, what do we subject ourselves to? Is it culture and personal feelings, or is it what God says? There was in this church some years ago another couple, and she told me when she was here, she said her husband can't ask her not about her money, because his money is my money, but my money is my money. Well, their relationship is history. We need to understand that many times we allow cultural practices to overrule what God says. And this is why currently, if you have been paying attention, you realize that the marriage vows, the wedding vows that are normally said at the altar, the women no longer are saying or want to say to obey. They have to rule that one out completely. And in some cases, they make up their own vows. So we are at a crossroads, really.
Thank you for that, Brother Dixon. So to add to that point, for the qualifier where husbands should love their wives as Christ loved the church, I think it's important because you bring up the important point of culture. We have a culture where submission, when you use the word submission, it just sounds like slavery. And we are unfortunately cultured by slavery or because of slavery. Because of the generational, because of our forefathers who came before and got into slavery, that mentality of mental slavery. There's a lot of things that did some introspection on, because even Bob Marley song, free yourself from mental slavery. It's a nice little hook. But do we actually think about what mental slavery is? Think about the way we approach certain topics and things and the way we view things. Our outlook on life is based on where we think. So when you think about submitting, and I'm talking from the perspective of the wife, when you think about submitting, I'm not a wife, but I'm just going to try. When you think about the perspective of submitting, it sounds as if I must give everything and all things to this man who I'm getting married to, and I no longer exist. And therefore, this is not something I want to do.
I have surrendered my will to him.
I've surrendered my will and everything.
And that is not going to happen.
And the men read the part where husbands love your wives. End. And love, they take love based on submission. They take love based on the submission. So if the wife does not submit, ain't no love coming your way, honey.
I can't think that is so. I don't know any man who is keen on the wife submitting. When you love a woman, submission is not the aim of the game at all.
You say you don't think that there's any man who
is aiming in a love relationship for submission. People want partnership, friendship, love, unity, all of that. Not for him to necessarily want her to just seem as a kind of a king. No. People who really love, the submission is not love, Men want to be loved also. Not for somebody. What do you gain out of submission when the person will love you? Because submission does not equal love. People want a reciprocal kind of love and respect and care and concern and response in a relationship, not submission. When a person submits to you, it doesn't necessarily mean love, and most of the time it doesn't.
I am inclined to disagree a bit. There are many men in this generation today that correlate submission to love. Many. The talk of it. Listen, if you want to know what the world think, if you really want to know what people in this world think, click on any YouTube video. You don't even need to watch a video. Go straight to the comment section. And I can tell you, you gain more from the comment section than the 1 hour video that you'd probably watch. Especially religious videos. When you go on TikTok, when you go on Instagram, I am in the comments because that is where the conversation is happening. It's not the content most times, I've seen people post about there was one a gentleman and his son, like he was teaching his son how to drill something. And when I went to the comment section, because he used a real drill and him help him just drill the hole, you go in the comment section and some people are saying, wow, this is so nice, and the rest of them, this is so dangerous, and have some psychological breakdown as to why the drill in him hand must not be a real drill and it must need to be a paper drill or some foolishness like that. And you will see, trust me, the relationship ones are the worst. Literally, me and Lisa watched one video for like they did a vox pop and they were asking people, what do you like in a man now? Or what do you think about marriage? And some of the responses were wild. Wild. And the worst part was the comment section. If you think the video is bad, it's the comment section. So, but before you go, I preface that to say, you can tell why people think this way because they don't read the scripture, but they don't understand, and they pull what they want from it. So you see this part that says, and let's read it together, Ephesians 5 verse 22. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands. Full stop. No, comma. As unto the Lord. So let me see if I can remove something and use. Wives, submit yourselves unto the Lord. Remove husbands from it. Wives, submit yourselves unto the Lord. Put back the husbands. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. So submission to your husband is not submission to your husband. It is submission to your husband through God. That's what it is saying. So if you don't love God, you can't love your husband. Simply put. Therefore, there is no submission. If you have not submitted to God, you have not submitted to your husband. Therefore, there is no love. It doesn't stop. Right? Let me skip that part for now. Let me go to verse 25. Husbands, love your wives even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Not husbands, love your wives. Full stop. The qualifier, even as Christ loved the church. You know how much bun Jesus get from the church? Jesus has been abused and killed by the church. Let's put that into perspective. How we say that is true? It further says, and gave himself for it. Which means he died. Died for the church, for the people of the church. So the husband is to give of himself to his wife, totally uninhibited. Sorry? You say make him 100% vulnerable? No, the scripture never said make him vulnerable.
Love is an expression of the vulnerability that you expose yourself to. My knowledge of love is that when you really love somebody, there's no battling anymore, because you have found somebody that both of you can share, and the need to be superior and the battling is not there. Men who really love, that is not his important goal for his wife. You probably listen to all of them videos that will come out on YouTube. Yes, they are a tiny indication, but they are not reflective. And when we talk about wives submit to husband and husband also to submit to wife, is a kind of exposure of vulnerability to each other because of the deepness of the love and respect and care that you have for the other person. It is not about, and so yes, you may have some men who probably still, and I didn't know that, and sister, she said, yes, there is. But when a man have plenty of women, like what you talked about earlier, he doesn't really love those. But when him find the one that him love, him stop fight, him stop prove himself, he wants to have that sense of struggling for word, but he wants to have that sense of unity and vulnerability, where he doesn't have to watch him back or feel that he need to protect himself or defend himself. He can give wholly and fully to that person, because that is what love is about. 100% vulnerability to that person, because you trust, care in that person and respect them.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. Yes. So we have two hands.
Brother teacher, I was thinking about the end result of man going with woman and getting hooked up in marriage. Because some of it is not on a biblical point of view. Some of it is just to marry her because she's there available. I think I love her or what have you. It's not done under the pretext of church or the love of God. But what was my problem before Brother Shaw spoke? Touching the point of sharing, where wives and husbands seem to have the thought in mind that the husband, for instance, will say, what is mine, and yours, and still say to the wife, what is yours is yours. In other words, he doesn't care if he only wants to know that she's comfortable. But what he has is his and hers. And then you may find the wife now, only what she has belongs to her. She's not willing to share. So we come now to, or he's not willing to share, either side. If you grow up in the home with a caring mother, caring father, or sharing mother and a sharing father or grandparents, as most of us grow up with, then you learn the process of sharing. You may not learn it efficiently, but you start to get into it. And when you reach the school life and you have your friends, with girlfriends or boyfriends, and you're going out and you're willing to share with them, especially in the adolescence age, when you start dating and going on, it's the same principle. You will be able to start sharing and caring for each other. So when you get in the marriage relationship, you won't have the what is yours, or what is mine as a standoff, because everyone will think of sharing. You know, they will not love each other probably 100%, you know, but they care for each other.
All right. I wanted to touch a little on that last part, but Brother Dixon.
The matter concerning husband and wife goes way back to creation. If we notice, God never made a mistake by creating man first, you know. He made man, and out of man, he made woman. So actually, man first gave birth. And the woman was said to be the help meet of the man. The man was considered the head, the stronger of the two, and therefore the woman, the weaker of the two. When sin entered mankind's existence, it was the woman who first failed. What did the man do when he found out that she failed? Somebody say, him back her up. And indeed, that's what he did. There is no record that he ridiculed her. He knew what the consequences of her action would be, and he stood by her side. As we come down and we look at Jesus and his church, the analogy is used that we should love men, our wives, as Christ loved the church or his church, because the church is categorized as a bride, his bride. But something has been tickling my brain for a long time, and it has been said several times since we're here, and last night as well I was reading. Why doesn't the Bible explicitly say, wives, love your husbands? Every time it says, husbands, love your wives. Is there an explanation?
Question to the class. Why doesn't the Bible say, wives love your husbands?
The Bible don't say anything like that.
Sorry?
The Bible says wives must love their husband. Submit.
Wives submit.
I just want to go back to
Yourselves.
this vulnerability. When you make yourself vulnerable, the issue of protecting what I have versus what you have is no longer a part of the game, because everything that I own, she automatically owns it. There's no need to be defending any position. If we are consistent with what the Bible says, if you are a godly man, as Elder Lewis spent a good time, then you will love your wife. And if you are living according to God and living a godly life, then I just cannot see why the wife should not want to submit to you, because she would be entrusting ourselves into a caring, loving, God-fearing leadership by the man. And not answering Brother Dixon.
Oh, he's not answering. He's not trying to answer the question.
I can't answer the question.
There's a hand?
Sister Carol Sharp will answer that question for you, Brother Dixon.
Well, Brother Dixon asks why the wives don't love the husband. What did Brother Dixon say?
Ask the question again, Brother Dixon.
You have to listen carefully and ask my questions. I said the Bible always say, husbands, love your wives. There is no record where it explicitly says, wives, love your husbands. My question is there an explanation for this?
I will say this. He's a thoughtful man, and he obviously have an idea which he's going to share with us, since we're not taking up him question.
All right, so let me attempt, because I strongly believe, and while I was here, I was actually trying to do my regular thing where I look up the root word that is used in Scripture and cross-reference it and all that fancy stuff. But I'm going to try and answer the question by asking a series of questions. When the Scripture says, wives, submit yourself unto your husbands as unto the Lord, what does it mean for a wife to submit unto the Lord? Can somebody ask that question? Answer that question. Obedience? Is it just, but fine. And respect? Fine. By worldly definition, it is obedience and reverence. But at the same time,
It's not love.
can you truly be obedient to somebody that you don't love?
Yes, of course. Beat out your daylight, you're more than obedient.
All right, make we go further.
Try another thing.
Make we go a little bit philosophical. We have this thing, There is this thing called Stockholm Syndrome. Anybody know what that is? Stockholm Syndrome. Anybody familiar with that term?
Only the term. Only the term.
Only the term.
Yes.
All right. So for those who don't know, Stockholm Syndrome is a sort of, let me use the word psychological defect, where somebody who has been, there are specific cases. So let me use a specific case to explain it. someone who has been kidnapped, for argument's sake, and they have been treated fairly, or they have been treated with in a certain way to the point where, given the opportunity of escape, the person does not. And they see their captor ironically as their provider. So that's why they don't want to leave. That's just a very layman way of explaining it. It's a bit more intense than that. But I bring this up to say, if we are abused enough, right, where we experience Stockholm syndrome, and the captor said to you, move, and you move, is it out of love? Is the movement out of love for this person? So is there a difference between obedience and submission, true submission? Let me answer that question. I believe so. Especially when it comes on to the Lord. There's no way a wife can submit unto to the Lord and not love him. Truly submit unto him. There's no way.
Yes, man. Many of us, we see submitting to the Lord as a means to an end. We really want to go to heaven, but we really don't love God. And this is why sometimes it's difficult for us to understand what love is. Many a time I hear people want to go to heaven, but there's a part in the Bible that says Jesus will be the light and you will be worshiping him when you go there. We don't really want to worship Jesus, you know. We feel this indebtedness sometimes that we will do that which is necessary to make it into the kingdom. But we are only going into the kingdom if we love Jesus.
I love this conversation because now I'm intrigued. I've done dash of the script. So in my brain, you explained salvation by works. That's what you explained to me, you know. That's what, at least that's what my brain
Yes,
just
a lot
recorded.
of us are still looking at salvation by works.
But is there salvation by works?
No, so we
So
are
is
on
there,
the wrong path
is there
in our
then,
mind.
is it really submission? That's the route I'm trying to get to, you know.
You have redefined submission to equal love, and submission is not equal love.
All right.
Unto the Lord.
No? This is interesting. I'd like us to stay on this topic. Yes, you can go. You can go.
We're talking about submission, all right? Submission, as far as a relationship is concerned, is a matter of yielding to the other person. Obedience, respect, reverence. I can submit to somebody in a situation because it is necessary and expedient for me to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that I love the person. The situation may require my submission. And in a number of cases on the job, especially if you're in a setting like the military, you have to submit to your superiors because it is required. And also, not to will most likely bring untoward outcomes, right? In the case of a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, Paul is here talking about submitting. As, you notice, as to the Lord. If we understand what it is to submit ourselves to the Lord, allow ourselves to be subjected to the desires and the instructions of God, then it is going to be automatic that where it is required in the man-to-man situation, that it will exist. But if we can't appreciate that kind of relationship with God in our setting, then it's not going to be possible on a man-to-man basis. You have to first be able to relate on the vertical before you can go on the horizontal in this case, because the requirement is first to God, then to man. The question I asked earlier on about, is there an explanation as to why the Bible has not explicitly said in any of the texts that wives, love your husbands? This is an indication as to the significance of the man's headship and responsibility in the relationship. That's why that pressure is placed on the man, because he has headship. Headship is like the person, the captain of a ship, you know. If you notice, ship is in the word. It's like headship, like captain. The person operating the ship, the person manning that plane. All the responsibility is in that person's hand at the time. And therefore, any instructions coming from the captain, what should be the response of the crew? Argue with the captain? No. Because usually when you argue with the captain, if it's a ship situation, you tend to end up with something that they call mutiny. And you know what mutiny usually resolves in? So, wives, it is understood that they must love their husbands. Because indeed, if you don't love your husband in the marriage relationship, you can't submit. So if you're not submitting, there's a big question sign over the love.
So, all right. So, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Because you just kind of explained what I was saying. If it is that the wife submits to the Lord, right? She loves the Lord. Therefore, through that submission and obedience, to fully, truly submit, you must love the husband. That's what you're saying. That's what I was saying. That's not what I was saying? What was I saying, Uncle Raymond? Sorry?
All right. The way that I saw it, good afternoon, everybody, is in looking at the question, I think we go back to Genesis. After the fall of Adam and Eve, mankind, if you look at the consequences that were given, I won't say punishment, but the consequences given, it was clear then that there was the headship of the husband, or Adam, and that the wife was going to be looking to her husband at all times from there onwards. So in other words, you saw a clear structure to how it was going to be done. The qualification comes later, as we see in Ephesians, and if you correlate it with Colossians 3:19, the matter of husbands, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church, because Christ is the head of the church, and Christ has loved the church in that way as well. As the head of the home, the man is taking direction from God. And by virtue of taking direction from God, he must pattern the one whom he's taking the instruction from. So if he's willing, as Christ was willing to love us and to die for us, the husband under Christ with that same headship isn't to be domineering, to be pushy, to be unkind, but then is to set the pace as God leads him for the family as well. Naturally then, the wife then would be following and taking the instruction from her husband, who is taking the instruction from Christ. And so the submission then happens, yes, as you have said, if she's loving God, then she's going to love the one who God has set to be the one steering the path toward the kingdom. But it's therefore then, as you would not then have to tell the wife to love the husband, because she's submitting to this person by her natural inclination. The husband is being told, ensure that as you love her, you do it as I would have done it, because Christ speaking, and I would have given the instruction.
Right.
You're satisfied with that, right?
Yes. So, thank you, Elder Dale, for going into that part, because I actually wanted to touch the side of the husband, which often is not explored. And I think tying this to our current cultural context is that we read these things and it feels like a nice little something to say. But the mentality, the mental transformation that you have to go through, you cannot look at scripture just by from the plain words. When you say submit, it's like when somebody says, oh, what is love? And my answer is, God is love. And then you say, what do you mean? But if you know who God is, you can understand the concept and the principality around love and in all of its forms. So for those persons who find it difficult to submit, or husbands finding it to truly love their wives, really and truly, the woman is not seeing a general direction from the man that is coming from God. And oftentimes they're not even connected to God themselves. Therefore, they have no inclination to submit. So they get the wrong idea as to what submission is. They don't know how even to identify it, or even to identify the right man. And the man now, who is just looking for this godly woman, but is not connected to God himself, therefore he goes with the mentality that when you are a Christian woman, you must submit to me. But him himself don't know what that is. And you see that communication is not working, because none of them are tapping into the source, which is why I think the qualifiers for these texts are very important. Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. So if you don't love Christ, you can't love your husband. Sorry, if you don't love Christ, you can't love your wife. And if wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands as unto the Lord. If you have never submitted yourself to the Lord before, you won't even know what submission looks like.
Brother teacher.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at marriages today that goes either way in submission, whether it be the man or the wife, because of fear. A fear to lose the house, not the material house, the home, to lose the home. The wife, for instance, will submit to a brutish man because of her family structure. She really it's not that she's fearful of the man per se, but she's protecting the home. She's keeping the home together. And a lot of marriages are going out there with submission on either side to keep the family life alive. I love my children. I love the husband as much, but I respect and want my children to grow up. I want them to come under a good heading. I submit, she probably even share it with them. I submit to what is going on with because of the home. A lot of people submit to things to cherish and to care for the home that it don't break apart. So a lot of marriages going on that way. They don't break apart, they live for hundreds of years. But somebody's submitting because fear of losing the home.
That opens up a very load, because while you were talking, it's going to go a little deeper. I don't know, this is a bit off topic, but in that scenario there, it's basically an abusive husband, right? Well, let's work with the husband. An abusive husband or wife, okay. And immediately I was like going to go back to my initial point, is Stockholm Syndrome. But then that's a part of the submission. It's a very tricky, slippery slope, because now you're going into, these persons are married. And if after you're married, the husband becomes abusive, where does the submission actually come in? This is a different topic, but it's a very interesting topic that I think we should explore at some time.
I don't think I heard us make any mention about why we get married in the first place. We're talking about marriage in the ideal situation. People get married for the wrong reasons. One person came to this church and get married to a girl because him see the girl who him like. And she come to church, so the only way to get her is to come here and then he married to her. Is that a good marriage to start with? You get married because the girl got pregnant. The girl gets married because she can't take the pressures at home. She wants to get out. And the easiest way to escape is to get married. We are supposed to understand that when people are getting married, they should know what they are getting into. And that we should take time out to find out about the person who you have intentions to marry. I remember many years ago, when I was not so young, that it was said that when you're at the altar, that's the last opportunity you have to change your mind if you realize that things aren't going to work out. You have up to that point standing at the altar. Many people have found themselves in that position, but they went through because all the money is spent already. And the invitation them gone out, and people are here and the food paid for, and they go through with it. In situations like those, do you really believe that you can have a relationship called marriage where the wife can be submissive and the husband be the loving husband? I don't think so. There are women who get involved in marriage relationships that have no idea about how to be a wife. There was a joke that was given because when you think you know and you don't know, it can be a dangerous thing. The guy met the girl and he liked her, so they fell in love, got married, and after they were together at one point early, he went out and he asked her to fix fish tea for him. When he comes home in the evening, he wants fish tea. And when he came home, he found macabac strained with condensed milk sweetened it. And when he asked her what was this, she said, you say you want fish tea. Because we know what country people call tea. Sounds funny, but it's not really funny because we have equivalent situations like those in relationships. And we should spend time to know about the person we are thinking of getting married to. We should learn something about their family, their medical situation. Okay? Because if you have a girl that you like and she comes from a family that have mental issues, and she look nice and rosy now, you are expecting to find some situations down the road that very likely you'll not be able to contend with. Okay? She may have been somebody who was abused, but you didn't know. Sexually abused growing up. What do you think is going to happen in that marriage? We need to understand that it's not just a matter of doing this in marriage and doing that in marriage, or not doing this and not doing that. We must know who we are getting in, who we are going to mingle with for the rest of our lives. So we must spend time to find out.
Agreed. And I think this is also a part of the deception here. Because I love the responses, because now we have identified the different reasons people start this family, start to get to get married and to do this. Some do it for business, some do it for selfish pleasure, and some do it for all manner of things. And now the devil is saying that, hey, yeah man, you can't do that because Jack and Jill over there are doing it, and they're doing it because Jill can get a green card, or Jack can get a green card, or such and such and such. And now it has been extended to, well, you see Jack and Jack, I see your hand, don't worry. Jack and Jack doing well over there, you know. And Jack and Jack are in love. And love is love. I don't know if you've seen the moniker now, where love defeats everything. And love is such and such and such. And they're calling now homosexual relationships love. The interesting thing about the their symbol, which is the rainbow, is that God created that as a promise that he would never destroy this earth again by a flood. And they've used that, and I'm not saying this is what they thought, because I don't know why they used it, but it's an interesting use because the rainbow symbolizes protection from destruction. But they use it as a way of pushing a false message, using a promise of God to bring forward a false message. You see how the devil is working very interestingly? Now we're going to teach our children, and you have to teach them colors. Colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, indigo. The rainbow, which is a real natural occurrence. But no, the communication is, if you see and like the rainbow, you are involved in the love. The love of man and man, woman and woman, and whatever other thing that they decide they're going to mix it up with. So instead of now teaching our children things straightforward like colors, we have to now teach them the colors, the same colors that exist and are in everything, and then now inject as to what is the difference between this rainbow and the rainbow with the persons who believe a family structure different from your own. That is going to be a very interesting conversation for me later down in life. Pray for me. But we're going to have that, and that's where we are. And if we don't, and while we can identify what are the differences in marriage and why people get married and all of these things, we have to also remember that the enemy is going to try and use these same things against you. He's going to try and use the same thing against God. He's using the family against God. He's using the rainbow against God. He's using the same tactic that God used to disrupt the Tower of Babel, to disrupt the people of God. And ironically, through technology, let me make it plain. When God came to the Tower of Babel and messed up the communication, everybody went north, south, east, and west. Over the years, this man traveled from here to over there. This person sailed from here to over there. Egypt invaded Lydia from here over there. And slowly but surely over the years, now we have internet where everybody is connected. What is the most popular language in the world? English. English. God created the languages to disrupt the evil that was being done. Now we're finding that the world is slowly coming back together to speak one language. One language. Universally, English is accepted everywhere. It's almost compulsory for a lot of non-English speakers to learn English for different scenarios, right? And we have the unifying of the world trade and all these things. People from over there can trade with us over here, over there, over there. We speak in one language. And now the world is, let's love one another. Unity. I hope you're seeing the connection and you're seeing how subtly the devil is working.
Yes, teacher. Back to what Brother Dixon were talking about, the marriage situation.
Yes.
Question. When God did the first marriage, did he teach the woman before he take her to the gentleman? That's a question. He didn't just take her and just say, here.
Did he
but
teach?
He got to teach her. But he have to teach her still.
Did he teach Eve before bringing her to Adam?
Uh-huh.
Anybody would like to answer that question?
Doctor, you said, why did I think she was taught? Because the surgery was created. The surgery has done. He woke up, and then God take this lady to him. You think he would have been confused? That's what I... Yes, please, but in the end, look what happened.
There's a hand at the back.
Hold on. He prefer her decision than God, because when she did the wrong, he could have known and seen the wrong, and yet still he go ahead and
Whose hand is up?
Sister Smith, I'm trying to understand the question a bit. Not sure I fully understand the question.
All right. This question was bothering me earlier. I don't know if it will answer her one, but I wanted to ask this question. I heard Elder Dale mention something close to it, but I was wondering, when Adam and Eve were created, I was thinking that there wasn't any headship or anything like that. That is what I can be wrong, so I stand for correction. I was saying that it's after sin, after they sin, then all of these things came along, so I'm not sure. I wanted to ask that one.
Okay, hello, brother. I see Brother Mullings' hand up. So, Brother Mullings, you can answer them, Brother Dixon.
No, I'm not answering that one.
Earlier I said that, or I asked a question, do you think that God made a mistake when he made Adam first? He made Adam first, man first, for a reason. And out of man, he made woman. So actually man first gave, quote unquote, birth. So the man was already ahead of the woman. But after sin, the Bible says that he is going to rule over her. That is a little more harsh. But man was already made ahead before, and he was made the head of the relationship.
You have your hand up? Okay.
With what Brother Dixon said a while ago, if we look into it, God put Adam to sleep because Adam first was made. And after he put Adam to sleep and him take the ribs and make the woman, it is God who make the name of Adam. It's he who give Adam the name. But who named the woman? Him bring Adam to the woman and Adam named the woman. So the woman to the Adam and Adam name her. That's why I'm saying, woman. She's part of me. So if we look at it, the head coming down, you can see it easily.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And I have one other point to ask your question now. A question was asked to you about, you must know who you're going to marry to. But did you know that after you're married, any man inside there or a woman married can tell me that after you're married, did you know that things come out of you and the woman totally different from when you was courting? Did you know that?
Sorry, repeat. I'm not
I am saying, when you're married, the things that when you was courting, you see, after you're married and ownership take hold, it's total different things you see.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, so no man in here who married a woman can tell me, say them see different thing. You must say the same thing. So some people say them write down the list of what you do or what the woman do. But when you go after you're married, that totally different thing. You can show away that list.
I'm inclined to disagree on personal experience.
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, totally different. No remnants of what was.
I disagree.
Existed.
What I would say is that you might see more things. You might see more things. totally different. Not
Yeah,
in my experience.
Brother, can I comment? Can I comment? The comment a while ago, I'm sure he drives a vehicle. And when he was going to buy the vehicle, he knew what he wanted, right?
Right.
He started to laugh. He knows where I'm going. I need to finish it. I don't need to finish then. He's laughing. I won't finish.
In answer to the sister's question about education, the reason I asked is as to why she asked the question is that usually persons have a particular understanding for what it is, why they generate a particular question. If you take the question just on the surface, you may not understand what they really want to know. And I think the concern, as she said later on, wouldn't Adam have been shocked by this thing, by this being that he's now seeing because she wasn't there before? Naturally, of course, Adam was surprised. Adam was taken aback by this beautiful creature that he now saw, which clearly was no animal that was around. It was no giraffe, no whatever else. And the being looked like him. So he must have realized that God did something amazing out of the fact that he thought, but I don't see anybody like me. And so God created someone for him. So yes, he'd have been surprised. As it relates to the education, there is nothing that clearly says that God took her and educated her before. So we can't preclude or assume that it did happen. In a similar fashion, we don't see God educating Adam when he created him. We don't see him taking him to school and going through all of these things. Could it be intrinsic in the creation process that God, by placing his spirit in these individuals, taught them? That could be the teaching that happened, yes. But the matter of taking her to some point and sitting her down to say, now, Eve, this is what you're going to do. And Eve, that is what you will not do. Additionally, Adam would have continued to teach Eve actually as the one who got the original instruction. So I think her question was about would Adam have known what was happening, what was going to happen, and how did he respond afterwards? The response was surprise but exhilaration for having seen this woman, and he would have been the one, I figured, who would have taught her most of the things, taking her around the garden, showing her this, explaining to her, not this, not here, don't go to this point, don't go to that point, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you. We have a hand from, hello, Luis.
I overheard Brother Dixon saying that there were no restriction points. I disagree, because the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was a testing point. What I will say is that we may not have any explicit instruction that tells us how Adam was educated or how Eve was educated. But what we do know is that both of them were created in the image of God. And it would strongly suggest, to me at least, that they were pre-programmed. God did not have to teach Adam a language. Right. Adam could understand God. And when Eve was presented to him, I'm not sure that Adam had to teach Eve how to speak, or she could understand exactly what it is that Adam was saying to her. So I believe that they were pre-programmed with certain basic information. They were warned that if they took from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that they would die. And it is as a result of the freedom that was given to both of them. Freedom to be creative, freedom to explore, to express themselves. It was a result of that freedom that was abused why sin was actually introduced.
Right. And to add to that as well, even when Adam saw Eve, Elder Dale said, yes, this looks like somebody looks like me. But at the same time, Eve was different. She's a woman. So for somebody who has never seen a woman, it's the first time I'm seeing a woman, there's a natural affection towards the woman. And that is now a part of the counterfeit, is that you can have man attracted to man, and woman against woman, and so on and so forth. So you see, we can learn a lot in Genesis, just by looking at how things play out, the natural order of things. Because why would Adam then just immediately know that this is woman? This is different from me, but I love her, this is my wife, whatever. Versus, say you're a man too. There is a natural affinity of men towards women. And that is what the devil is now trying to break, slowly but surely, through different things, whether it be scientific discoveries or whatever it may be. And that is also something we need to pay careful attention of.
Thank you. Good evening, Elder.
Good evening, sir.
I hope what I'm about to say it is of respect. Because this year, in September coming, will be 40 years since I married. We got married. And you see, respect is due to the person who you're married to. And when I got married, I want to confess it is personal. But when I got married to my wife, I never loved her. I was coming out of a bitter relationship. I was coming out of a bitter relationship. I hope you're hearing me. And I just set the date and married. I didn't went through no marital counseling. I just got married the next 2 weeks. And it's going into 40 years. It's just that I slept and the Lord said, this is the lady. I got married to a lady that wanted a husband. And we produced one child. God took her away. But I don't think I'm the perfect husband. I don't think I'm the perfect man. All we do is work with what God says. There's no condition applies. There's one book, one bank book, one everything. We don't have a problem to say who is the man, when I'm not there, she's the man. If I just a minute. Let me reiterate. Let me correct if you want me to. But she in charge when I'm not at home. Then when I come home, then she will tell me what transpired. And then we make a decision what to do next. Like if the children were around and they do bad at school, and she will tell me about it. One of us goes by the school or we do something together. We go together, we work together.
Amen.
But why should we have a problem whether who is in charge? If we're going to buy a car, then we discuss that. If we buy a house, we discuss that. We come up with the best solution. And we work together. When you're married, you are one. I don't remember quarreling. If I start, if there's going to be a problem, I just step out the house. I don't think that's the best idea. But I walk away. When I know she cool down, then we say we're ready to talk. So you just know how to maneuver yourself. I'll be mature enough. Some men are man, but they are not ready because they are not mature.
All right, thank you, Brother Campbell. And that's a pointers of a healthy marriage, It's co-laboring together. That's what you're doing. But in terms of what we're speaking about, in terms of spiritual lead, as Christ is the head of the church, the husband is the head of the home. So it's not about lauding it. It's not like when you leave, Sister Campbell can't run the house. She is your second. So she will run the house. She is still the parent in the home. She is a co-laborer with you. So when it comes to those things, co-laboring together as husband and wife, that is how it should be.
I'm sure everyone will appreciate that when we got baptized, the day that we got baptized, we thought that we loved the Lord. Several years after being baptized, and you would have read your Bible, read your quarterly, read the Spirit of Prophecy, read other inspired books, you'd have had discussions with friends, and your love for Christ must have grown. If you, like Brother Campbell, I've been married for 40 years, and I said it here once before, that when I got married, I didn't love my wife because I love her now. And if what love I have for her now was less 40 years ago, then it means that it was minimal love then. It was taken out of context, but I was able to defend and explain myself. Because my wife wasn't in church when I said it, and someone went and told her that I said that I didn't love her when we got married, right? But the thing is, love grows. Love is supposed to grow. Anything that doesn't grow is dead. Dead, right? And that is how it should be. We are given certain basic a starter kit, and then we are allowed to develop our creativity, our personality, everything. But it must be influenced by the Holy Spirit.
Right.
If you try to use logic and common sense and, what seems to be right, because the Bible says something that seems to be right is dangerous. There's a way that seems to be right. And that is what is happening to relationships today. People say, well, I'm going to get married. So the first thing I do, I set up a prenuptial. So that if, this is what...
Setting up yourself to feel.
If I were to tell you how my parents got married, you wouldn't believe it. They got married by correspondence. Right? My father saw my mother, and he was invited to Claremont in St. Anne to have a crusade. And the last day of the crusade, he was invited to my mother's home for Sabbath lunch. And while there, he asked my mother's father if he could write to her. And the father said yes. And they went away, and for nearly 2 years, they were sending not emails, not text messages, letters that would take a week to get there and a week far more for a response and so on. The next time my mother saw my father was the day of the wedding. Right? And she told me that persons were saying, put on your wedding dress. And she said, no, she not put, because she have to know him come first before she put on her wedding dress. Well, he came, they were married. Divorce was not a part of their vocabulary. Regardless of what, and I know when my parents are not happy, because my mother would share out his dinner and put it on the table, and he would sit down and eat and whatever. But you, as a child growing up, you know that there's tension. Right. But at no point in time did they ever explore the possibility of divorce or separation and so on. Today, people are preparing for divorce before they get married. So we have our prenups where I list all of the assets that I have, and if we get divorced, you can't touch that. I remember going to a baptism. One of the candidates, I was walking with her to church, and she was crying. When I asked her, what are you crying for? You know what she said? She knows she's going to turn back. No, if you know you're going to turn back, what are you getting baptized for? And if you know that this is a business marriage, well, I guess if you have your own motives, but persons who are getting into marriage relationships should understand that this is permanent. This is not something that you can change just because she cook something and you don't like it or something like that.
Right, and that is perpetuated by the culture that we live in. You said something very important, and Brother Campbell said too, it's not until the two connect where you say, oh, you didn't love your wife before you got married. And it's not, we ignore some of the base instincts that we have, Just as I mentioned that when Adam saw Eve, he didn't like her, she looked pretty. That is where it starts. You can't ignore that. There's nothing to ignore. You see a woman, you like her. When you mentioned that they didn't see each other and they wrote letters to each other, I actually find that to be a powerful way of connection. Because I've said this to Lisa, is if me and you can't talk when we're old and gray and can walk up and down, then there's nothing there. When we can do the same level of physical activity and attraction or whatever we used to do, I suppose I can talk to you and enjoy myself. And that is one of the things that drew me to her, is that we enjoy each other's company. So, and if you look at, and I think a lot of men are not honest with themselves as well. What they really want is shadowed by what they can see. So they like the pretty girl and the whatever is going on in her rear end and all these things. But what they really want is somebody that they can relate and talk to. But you know, have a hot girl somewhere around, you know, say nothing. And that is what takes precedence because of social pressure, because of what other people are, you know, what the celebrities and whatever are doing. And interestingly enough, they model these relationships, ironically, from people with unsuccessful relationships. Unsuccessful relationships. We have to model our relationships first and foremost from the Bible. And then if we see couples, and that's another thing, you see me and live with me are two different something. You can see couples looking good and sharing and looking loving and whatever, but you don't know what's actually happening in their home. You don't know how they got to that point where what you see is what you want. You know, we sometimes go into those things thinking that we're going to have butterflies forever and not want the bad times, not knowing that it's the bad times that actually make the good times. The bad times are what makes the good times. I saw some, yes.
Yes, I was saying that with the Brother Dixon pointed out about having a knowledge of whom we are going to get tied up for the rest of our lives, wife or husband. You need to have a knowledge of the person's way of life before you got married, etc. Years ago, I remember with a girlfriend of mine, we sat down for a while and we talked about each other's weaknesses. Very important word, weaknesses. I personally, until now, don't like a smoking woman. I don't like a woman who smokes cigarette. And the first thing she told me, she smoked. Well, I didn't love the woman, you know. So I'm going to decide now if I really want the smoking. But then the weakness, I started to put the weakness together because I had one too, drinking. So me tell her, I say, you love a man who drink? Sister, I don't love a man who drink and get drunk. Does that happen to you? What am I saying? I'm saying to really know each other's weaknesses will ensure what Brother Campbell pointing about, or what Brother Dixon was saying, because now you're willing to go through and be able to understand the person in your weakest time. Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? The third time, Peter, do you love me? Peter got kind of, I get ignorant now. I mean, aggressive. Why are you asking me that, Lord? Because Christ wanted to know that he would be able to spread his love, not only to him, Christ, but to the church. Here we go, a different situation. But Christ would have seen his weakness when he denied him, and he forgave him right there and then. So we need to know each other, just the footnote, to know something about each other.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, the confessional is very good. But because I tell someone my weaknesses doesn't mean that we should get married. If I identify my weaknesses, I will have to determine whether I'm willing to take up the challenge and try to overcome those weaknesses because of my love for that individual and my desire to have that person as my partner. Just saying, well, you know, I drink or I smoke or I have 10 children in a previous relationship or something, that is not enough by itself. You have to be willing. No, I'm not being critical of what you're saying. I'm making a general comment that we need to be willing to overcome the weaknesses that we are aware of. Otherwise, we are doomed. We have, apart from weaknesses, we have, I remember I went to a church once and I met one of my friends. and someone came up to me in front of my friend and said, tell him that he needs to get married. Now, he's not married, and everybody thinks that he's a suitable bachelor and he should be married. Why are you going to pressure someone to get married if they don't have that desire, that inclination? And you know, people see a young man, a young woman in church, they sit down beside each other, they share the hymnal or whatever it is, and they look nice together. Fine. They're friends. And you should get married to one of your friends. But not because you look good together, or you know, a common one is two people can sing and they sing duets together, and therefore people expect them to get married. No. Sometimes we pressure individuals to get married, and then after they get married, we don't provide any support system for the newlyweds. Right. And pretty soon, I remember, I'll say this one loud and let me look. My wife is here. But I remember the first time I boxed my wife. And a lot of people are going to say, Brother Louis boxing wife, I boxed her. No, let me tell you why I boxed her. I was sleeping, and she came over me to kiss me. And I was aware of a present, and I just bow. Right? Now, if you hear that I boxed my wife, you are not going to know how and why I boxed her, you know. And you can say, Brother Louis boxing wife. Right? And you know, sometimes things happen, right? But the fact of the matter is we need to have a support system, especially for newlyweds. For those who are contemplating marriage, there needs to be some type of support system for them. And for those who are newlyweds, there needs to be some type of support. Otherwise, the institution that God created on the sixth day of creation is going to be utilized by the devil to do all sorts of things, right?
All right, thank you. I have a hand from Elder Dale. And if time allows, we'll just proceed as well, because I know this topic is really good.
All right, thank you very much for the time. I'll make it brief. I agree with what Elder Lewis just said, and it speaks to the fact that as church there are things we do not discuss.
Right.
And in reality, we should be prepared to discuss them.
Right.
After persons get married, they need support. Not meddling, but they need support. And when we attend weddings, we have to be prepared to understand the reason we are there is not to eat the food provided, or to fast with how the bride dress look, or how large the bridal party is or was. The purpose of being there is I am committing that I will be there to assist as is needed. But before that, you hear husbands and wives talking this evening, very practical things. And it's something that I would love to see happen in the church, where when you have women's ministry and men's ministry, that this is where the masks can come off. And a man married for 50 years can say, let me tell you something. In the first 2 years, it wasn't easy. We don't have to get the intimate details behind it, but it hasn't been just 1 year or 2 years. It's 10, it's now 30, it's 40, it's 50 years, and we did it by X, Y, and Z. How did we court? What did it mean? Our singles don't necessarily know either, because the pattern that is set by the world is very superficial. And it comes with these clauses. If I don't like you after 6 months, I can leave because there's a prenup and I can walk away. That is not what God expects. And so we need to be able to talk to people about what is God's standard for maintenance, but also God's standard for choice as well. It's a discussion that we are not having. And I think it's something we really need to get to the point of being sensitive enough to have, sensitive and sensible enough to have, because marriage is God's institution. And as you're talking about counterfeits, that is exactly what the devil is trying to do. He's creating a counterfeit with these beautiful lies that are there.
Amen. And we to add to that, we need to be intentional about it. So though we say we need to, it's like a trigger for me. We need to talk about this, but we don't really talk about it. We leave it for the next ministry to pick it up or something. And then when we do talk about it, we kind of fall back a little bit. Because the reality is, something as big as sex is a part of every marriage. And I will say it again, sex, because some persons cover their ears and all these things. And the reality, you remember the time the young people came up here for children's story, and Lisa and myself and Zion did it, and we were asking the question about AI, or it came up somehow, and the children were reeling off how them use it. Reeling off, and the church was dumbfounded because we're here. We actually expected them to look at us like, what are you talking about? No, they have strategy. They know which tools to stack on and to create whatever. Goes back to my point. The world is intentional about these tools and getting the children and people to use them. We were having a discussion this morning in the cornerstone class with Elder Go, and we were talking to some of the young men about, they were talking about some games. Like, we asked them, what games do you play? And they said Roblox. No, I don't expect anybody in here to know what Roblox is. I barely understand it. But Roblox is some world-building game, and you can create games for other people. So Elder Go was saying, back in my day, back in our day, we had games that had an objective. And when you reach the objective, the game done. In our time, we say, we zero the game, right? These games now, he's saying that they did some sort of look into some of these games like Roblox, where literally they never end. You're in the game and you're just continuously doing it. And if you think about all the different platforms, they are geared towards continuous and repetitious activity. There's never a close off, no cut-off point. So their goal is to get you in it and wrap you up in it. Keep rolling. So when our young people can reel off how ChatGPT works, it's because they're in the space and they know. And even if they don't know, because we're not talking about it, they'll find somebody who knows about it. So if we don't talk about things like sex and the responsibilities that come with sex and real relationships, you think they're going to wait for a week? Them get old too, So they're eventually going to want to have sex and want to know how to experience it. So if we're not standing in that gap, they're not going to wait on us. And the world is ready to teach that because, as I said, there is an answer to every question. An answer to every question. It doesn't mean that the answer is correct, but they don't care about what is correct. The devil cares about what gets people, right? And that leads me very beautifully into a little bit of what we will experience in next week's study, where we're going to look at how Satan has revealed himself and how to even identify who is malicious. Let's quickly turn to Genesis 3. I think we may have read it already. But let's read it again. Genesis 3, verses 1 to 4. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast in the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, you shall not surely die. The question is, how much do we know about the person who is talking to us? Do we know anything about this person? We talk about the information age. I can tell you there are probably 120,000 videos about the war in Iran. But ask me how much of them correct about what is actually happening. We don't know. And that is scary, isn't it? So then, defense tip. or before we go to the defense tip, how do we understand or how do we profile people? Because profiling, we're going to use the word judge, as it's really an assessment of somebody. When you see somebody walk past, and you say, my brother, they look like thieves, so. Maybe because him pants down in bottom or him have a certain type of hairstyle. That is known as profiling. What you're doing is coming up with an assumption of somebody just by looking at them, right? For better or for worse. Because the person could be a very nice person, just dressed like that. And he could very well be the opposite. But he could also be the opposite with a very nice, he could have looked like me. It could have been me. How do we know? Let's find out by going to 1 Kings. We're going to look at 1 Kings 3. I'm going to wind down a bit. 1 Kings 3, verse 5 to 10. I'm going to read for expedience. Where am I? 1 Kings 3, verse 5 to 10. And it says, at Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask, what shall I give you? And Solomon said, you have shown great mercy to your servant David my father, because he walked before you in truth, in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with you. You have continued this great kindness for him, and you have given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. Verse 7, now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king instead of my father David, but I am a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in, and your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to be numbered or counted. Therefore, give to your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? Final verse. The speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. How do we profile people? Defense tip. Ask God for wisdom. We do not know. Let's just assume we don't know anything. We don't know anything. And we don't know everything, obviously. God knows any and everything. We ask him for wisdom to approach situations like this. And I say this because there is a little habit that I have, particularly when people start to talk about religious things. There was a podcast I was listening to yesterday. And while there's a lot of wisdom in the world, I'm going to be honest. There are people out there who genuinely care about people and they want to uplift them mentally, financially, whatever. However, and they have good content, but sometimes they will say some things based on their spiritual belief that in that moment, while you take some of the stuff, it's not applicable to your life and to what you believe, because it is not in teaching with God. So there is something that this gentleman had said in the interview, which I found very interesting. And there's some very interesting nuances in it. So he said that religion, like people who have a strong will or believe, have a strong will, a certain percentage, like a high percentage of them find like happiness when they are when they have some sort of religious belief or they pray. People who pray have a higher happiness level and overall mental health level versus people who don't pray and are not religious. So I was following him with that. And he gave us like a mini testimony to say, boy, I was one of those persons where, I didn't believe in praying and whatever. But then I looked at it objectively and I said, there is some power here. And then he said, boy, yes. And, if you believe in God and such and such and such. But then he started to say, People, what I think prayer is a good tool. You don't have to believe in anything, you just pray. And that will help you to build up that happiness level. Red flag, right there. That is where now you have lost me, right? And those are the subtle little things. Because when you look at it, it's kind of like how the devil did it. You shall not surely die. Yeah, you can use prayer, but you don't need to talk to God. You can just use it as a means of getting by. And practice makes perfect. So you just pray, but when you pray, who you pray to? Prayer is a conversation. It's like you're talking to yourself. I mean, talking to yourself can be therapeutic, but in an instance where prayer is a specific communication line to a higher power, in this case, God, right? Because you have people who pray to the devil. So those are the subtle little things that can come out of worldly wisdom. While there are good things you can take, there's always, sometimes you find there's a line, and if you're not careful, you will get swept up in it very, very easily. So when we are looking at people or looking at how things are going and you're not sure, you ask God for wisdom. And that wisdom, first of all, let me just say, the podcast was really good because what it was talking about was how what you think really and truly dictates a lot of how you move. So if you feel that, if you say that, boy, you're not going to make it in a life, you're already convinced in your mind to say that you're not going to make it into life. And I have pulled from it the thing from Haggai 1, where Haggai was telling the Israelites, well, this is when Darius sent them back to build Jerusalem, and they were building their houses, and the Lord said, I don't understand. You build your house, my house smash up. I don't understand that. How that work? You need to stop what you're doing and go build my house. Now, what I extrapolated from that, and I use it, I'm going to touch some corns now. I use it and apply it to our church here. We as a church, we want to expand and we want to look at this gracious property over here. But the Lord is saying, wait, children's department want to fix. What's going on? Why you want this over here and the windows need to change, the roof, the this, the that we need to fix the house of the Lord first before thinking about expanding. And I'm starting to think now, that's maybe one of the reasons why nothing has come through for us, because we genuinely don't believe that God is for us here to build this so that he can expand us. If we are faithful in little, how will we be faithful in much? How will we be faithful in much? So when the devil comes to show you fancy things, show you what you can expand and how you can expand and what you can do on the world of opportunities, we need to stop and say, is this what the Lord wants us to do right now? If it is, then let us pray with intention that he will provide a way. But if it is not, what is he saying that we should do before? So heeding the wisdom of God is very important. And let's go and look at, I'm going to wrap up in soon. Let's look at Matthew 4. This is now a little bit of the clincher. Matthew 4, verse 1 to 11. Because this is now going to explore how do we know when God is saying, not just how do we know when God is saying something, but do we understand what it is that we believe so that we can't be deceived? Matthew 4, verse 1 to 11. I'm going to read quickly. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. When he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry. Now when the tempter came to him, he said, "If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread." What did Jesus say? He answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God." Do you think that Jesus would have overcome that if he didn't believe who he was? Because the devil came and asked him, "If you are," or he said, "If you are, turn these into stone." I know who I am, but that's not what God asked me to do. You shall not live by bread alone, because the devil is now targeting a specific need, because Jesus was hungry, he was fasting. He's targeting a specific need. How many times do we have a specific need and we succumb to the hunger and don't ask God for help? This goes back to my favorite parable where Jesus said, "Children of this world are wiser than the children of light, because you don't ask me for the legions of angels and treasures that I have in heaven to provide it for you. You don't believe it. So how is it that you're going to claim something that me and you never have a conversation about before?" I have a little, it's not a joke, it's serious actually. And I'm going to share it with you, and I'm going to come back with my testimony when it happens. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. I have said to Lisa multiple times, see, when we're ready to buy our house, I am going to pay for that cash. I was hoping for a resounding amen, but joke is on you, because I know what I know, And it's years I was saying that. Lisa laugh after me. Laugh after me. And maybe a few months ago, the Lord has shown me how that may very well be possible. I thought I would hear more amen, but you know what? I'm going to come back with a full testimony. And you see, you know why I don't sit down so? It's because I don't believe it, I don't believe it,
Yeah, man, we are waiting until
I see some hands going up already. I see 2 hands going up. Yes. Eh?
You said the Lord showed you very likely how it may be.
All right, I'm so sorry.
I was expecting for you to say the Lord showed me how it's going to happen maybe within X period of time. Then we will expect to have
I won't say X period of time, but I will change it to say how it will happen, not may happen. It will happen.
Different talk now.
Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for correcting me. And we have to have that belief. We cannot, you see, the people who, you see, the devil believe in himself, because he's only a madman who knows him God dead, believe him can actually make a dent in the kingdom of God. Believe it, and he is not stopping. So why when we buck up on some little something, our God is so big and so powerful, we can testify to say, boy, listen, God have that, I'm not worried about that. To this day, I am telling you, I'm not budge on that. I am not budging on it. I am just waiting for the time I can come to the church and say, church, I bought my house cash. And I'm going to tell you how you can get yours cash too, for those of you who are looking. So, we have to ask God for wisdom, and we have to believe that the wisdom that has been passed on to us is effective. Jesus said, you don't receive anything because you don't ask for nothing. You don't ask for nothing. And even when you ask for it, you don't believe it. There's another text that even back that up, and I'm trying to remember where it's from. But God is saying, like, if you're asking for healing, and if there's even one person who don't believe that that healing is coming, it's not coming. It's not coming. So we have to believe in, we have to seek that knowledge first, right? We have to seek that knowledge first. And we looked at 1 Kings 3, verse 5 to 10, that Solomon asked for it. How much of us have asked God for wisdom? Or we think it's only for Solomon? We can talk about how Solomon has been wise and, great and did all these great things, but why that can't happen to us? Maybe because when we even ask for it, we're not believing it. So we need to be intentional about what we're asking for. Defense tip number 2. Let's go to Luke 6, verse 31, and I'm winding down. Luke 6, verse 31. Luke 6, verse 31 says, "And just as you want men to do to you, you also should do to them likewise." I use this as a guiding principle. The Bible is not going to always specify how something should work or what should be done in every single case. But there's a guiding principle that we should have. That if we're going to show love, there is a principle on how love is shown. It's shown through kindness, right? It's shown through different ways. And we use that in our ministry, right? So tying it back to Jesus' experience, he had a connection with God. And he passed this knowledge to us. It is now the onus for us. So he passed it to us through his disciples, right? And it is now on the onus for us to use this knowledge to reinforce the rest of the church. Because what they did thereafter was come together, go out, bring people in, and create a structure for them to come in. I'm not talking necessarily a physical structure, but the organization of the early church started through the efforts of the disciples, right? And when we're going out and gathering people, they need to come into something. We're going out and getting souls. And we talked about it earlier. We're getting people we're going on to crusade, we're going to street meeting, and all of that. And the aim is to carry people inside. But if inside is messy, why would they stay? What are we carrying them into? How are we going to carry them from the counterfeit world into a less counterfeit place where some of us don't believe wholeheartedly in what it is that we're doing? And God is saying, listen, you lack because of knowledge, but not only that, you lack because you have not submitted yourselves to me. So, closing off, we have to weigh every word against the Bible. There are going to be conflicts that arise within our interpretation of the scripture when we come together as a community. Because it's in our lesson, The lesson is talking about family and community, church community. And we have to learn to live together. We have to learn to live together. We may not agree on all things. But you see, like how we sat and we discussed about the family, and we went in and we paused because we never understand something here, and Elder Dale explained and all of that. That is what we should be doing. Week in, week out, iron sharp iron, reinforce ourselves. Whatever we don't understand, let's dig more into the word. Let's get to somewhere where we can we can understand each other, so that when we start to bring persons into the fold, they're coming into a family that is already united. So we look at the information age, the family structure, the family, the church family. Generally, that's what we're talking about here, and how the counterfeit is trying to destroy all of that structure. If you look on it, everything, all of those things are connected. All of them go straight back to Genesis, the Genesis. of everything, going straight back, and the devil is not going to stop. So next week, we will be continuing with Elder Dale, and we will be looking at basically part 2 of this, because he will be going more into Revelation and when Lucifer makes his appearance as the counterfeit Christ. This series was inspired by an amazing facts documentary thing on Revelation, and it's a really good watch. So I would recommend that you go and watch it. It is the latest one because they have multiple ones, and it's more cinematic. It's not really like a lecture, right? The part that got me was when they enacted Lucifer's coming as the Messiah, his counterfeit coming. And he was presented in a manner that was just so pristine. I don't know how they did it, but it had an effect where if this guy actually came, how many of us would believe that he is not the true Christ? Especially if it is that he is teaching love, unity, togetherness. How can this be bad? You may sit here and say, well, we will know. But the truth is, when the rubber hit the road, how strong are you in understanding the deception? Let me end by, I don't know who, let me get a raise of hand. I know Brother Dixon wasn't here. I'm going to end with this scenario again. For those of you who were here, don't say nothing. For those of you who, I don't even know what time it is, but there's a scenario. If you're near it already, don't answer. So the scenario is, Brother Dixon, I want you to listen. There is 87% of people do not get this scenario correctly, and only 13% get it correctly. There's only one person here got it out of the time that we gave the scenario. So the scenario is, father and a son were driving in a car late at night. The car crashed, father died, and the son was in the hospital. The surgeon who looked at the son said, I can't operate on him because he's my son. How is that possible? What's that, Brother Dale? All right. What is your answer? Jesus? Repeat. The surgeon saw the son. Oh. So, father and son were driving in a car. The car crashed. Father died. The son got rushed to the hospital. And the surgeon who went in to operate on the son looked at him and said, I can't operate because this is my son. How is that possible? What are you drawing for? I don't understand. Oh.
From a human perspective, that's not possible unless the surgeon was Jesus himself.
All right. So the answer is that it's his mother. The surgeon was his mother. And we started with that because...
Gender issues, eh?
Because you have been cultured to believe that it's only men can be doctors and surgeons. So I ended with that same thing because we have to now unlearn some of the things that have been shoved into us unknowingly. And we can only keep doing that through refinement of the scripture and exploring and allowing the Holy Spirit to transform our minds. So with that, I close here and we will reconvene next week where we will look at our next final topic. At this time, I'll thank you all for coming to Bible, for those who came and for those who stayed. For context, our young people went out to downtown for Global Youth Day. So at this time, I am going to ask Brother Roper to give us a Vesper thought, and then we stand and sing and close. close off.